Martial arts and boxing is a really good metaphor because you folks might not be, doing any sparring or boxing, but there's plenty of adversarial energy in our lives, whether it's work or family or just whatever it is that is challenging you. And so when we're sitting in traffic late to work or we're on the phone with our tax guy, how can we drop into a state of relaxation and into a state of flow rather than tightness and tension?
Lee Holden, thanks for coming back on the Mindful Movement podcast.
Thank you, Les. So good to be here. We had to do it again. We had so much fun last time.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
And you have a new book out, Ready, Set, Slow, and I do want to dive into that. But first, you were kind enough to offer an entrance for me into your Dao Yin course.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Isn't that cool?
It's
I don't know
cool.
if you've started yet.
I did. I'm a little slow to it. My son's been in town, so my schedule has been like a little out of sorts. So not as regular as I would like, but that's going to change over the next week. But I like it, and it's came at a good time for me.
Yeah.
It's funny how the universe works like that. I was really, I think, due to reconnect with like a mindfulness-based movement practice, and I needed that like type of nourishment, I guess, especially coming out of the cold season here in Maryland, like not getting outside as much. And
Yeah.
I really like to practice. In my past, I practiced Qigong and a little bit of yoga and some general movement stuff outside. And I just get a little like decrepit feeling in the cold season when I'm not getting
Absolutely.
out grounded in the sun as much. So I'm looking forward. I have some new tools in the toolkit from the course.
Great.
And it's funny too because, and for the listeners, so Dao, just real quick, Dao Yin it's like a form of Qigong, or Qigong is
Yeah.
a form of Dao Yin?
Right.
Which one?
And it's a little bit of both. Dao Yin means to guide and direct the vital energy through the body. So it was an ancient practice. In fact, before Qigong was called Qigong and even yoga was called yoga, Dao Yin was an ancient form of movement therapy. And it was the first time there was written records of exercise as medicine. And the really interesting thing in these cave paintings and these excavations, they found pictures of people doing exercises like on the back of tortoise shells. It's 3,000 or 4,000 years old. They discovered it in the 1970s.
They
And
found the drawings on the tortoise shells, or drawings of people standing on tortoise shells
that's a
doing the
good question.
exercises?
Good clarifying. You're not doing the exercises on the tortoise shells yet?
Is
That's the
that must
advanced
be the
version.
module 3? I haven't got to
Yeah,
yet.
you got to get to module 3 for sure for that one. The pictures were on tortoise shells and on scrolls. And then they found them in these caves in the 1970s. And it was part of what was known as the Yellow Emperor's classic of Chinese medicine. And Chinese medicine was built on these 5 principles, which was, pressure points and acupressure, herbal medicine, nutrition, and massage therapy, as well as these Qigong and Dao Yin exercises. Now, for me, Dao Yin is like a cross between like Tai Chi and yoga. There's flowing movements, there's pressure points, there's breathing exercises, and all in the name of guiding Qi or life force energy through the body. So it's a little bit similar to yoga because there's stretching on the floor. And it's similar to Qigong because there's flowing movements. And like your podcast suggests, it's mindfulness in motion. You're moving your body with mindfulness. Now, the word yin, Dao Yin, this part of the word meant intention. So intention of circulating energy. So the aspect of the mind was really important. It wasn't just exercise of the body. It was moving the body with intention and the mind and the body connecting as a way to optimize our internal energy.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for that explanation. Yeah, it's interesting because some of the practices that I've experienced with your course, I noticed that in my practice of like Qigong and yoga, eh, I've already kind of found myself gravitating towards some of these things, like as opposed to maybe holding a position, like flowing back and forth between uh like two ends of one position. And I find that just like naturally happens for me. So it was
Yes.
interesting. It's like, oh, they've been doing this a long time. Like this is what I find myself. This is what I do where I feel like I'm making up my own shit when I'm doing my practice. And I'm like, oh no, there's already like a structure, a
Right?
scaffolding that people have built. And
Yeah.
then I've also appreciated like some of the other context that you've provided in some of these positions. Like there was one that stood out to me early on. I think it resembled like a warrior two position that you were kind of coming back to
Mhm.
center. And you were talking about how the front arm is like representing the future and the back arm, the past. And like this
Mhm.
moving, like where you're not ignoring those, like you're noticing those and you have attention to that, but you're moving back to like the center position, back to the present, and this like
Yeah.
oscillating flow, which it just resonates with me, man. I like it.
Ah, that's great. Yeah, that is a Dao Yin stretch. It's like Warrior Two in yoga. The difference between Dao Yin and yoga is that you're going to flow through the postures. You come back to the heart center. That's your present moment. You float the arms out in this nice, relaxed way. Forward arm represents the energy going towards your future, and the back arm energy coming from your past. You keep them nice and light, stabilized in the present moment. And what I like is that you are bringing into your body these concepts that we understand in our minds, but by embodying them, they become more practical, more applicable, and even more accessible because we get a felt sense from the inside out.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think it's great. I appreciate it. There's also, you're adding context around the meridians of the positions that you're connecting with, and I just dig it all, man. So,
Yeah. I'm
thanks
so
for
glad.
inviting
Me
me into it.
too.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. I'm looking forward to doing more. Like I said, I'm a little behind schedule, but I have been enjoying it, and I just want to let you know. So, thanks for
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, it's one of my favorite programs because of the integration of the yoga-like stretches and the qigong flows and then self acupressure. It has a lot to offer. And then there's a bunch of stuff you'll see as you get into the course to strengthen the core. So it'll create a really wonderful transformation through the body. And that's what qigong and these practices are all about. And then again, like, we want to have ways to bring mindfulness into everyday life, and whether it's a formal practice like Dao Yin or Qigong or yoga, or informal practices like I'm suggesting in the book that I just wrote, the Ready Set Slow book. How do we just bring more mindfulness, more elevated energy into the things we're already doing each and every day?
So, ready, set, slow. What made you want to write this book?
I wanted to take Qigong principles and apply it to everyday life. So how does slowing down improve our lives? And does it improve our lives? Is it a tool that we need in our toolbox, like you suggested? And what happens when we slow down? Like, for example, yes, it's a wonderful practice to slow down when you're doing Tai Chi or Qigong. It's a wonderful practice when you're doing mindfulness meditation. What does that do to, let's say, our physiology? It's going to have tremendous health benefits. People that practice meditation and mindfulness have a much lower biological age than their actual age. It's one of those things that just helps to slow down the aging process. So I love all these practices for their very practical reasons. To do these practices means you're going to be more energized, you're going to have less stress, we're going to live longer. And I think that is very interesting to lots of people. Now, if you apply it to other things, let's just take weightlifting, for example. How does slow weightlifting help? Well, and I think this is a good metaphor, a good example of the power of slow. When you lift weights slowly, you put your muscles under longer term pressure, which is good for the hormones. And you don't have to do as many sets in the gym, so it actually saves you time. So when you're slow weightlifting, you get a really good pump as long as you go to almost to muscle failure on that first set. You only have to do 1 or 2 sets as opposed to 5 sets, and you only have to go to the gym maybe twice a week for about a half an hour, and you get tremendous benefit. So you save time, you get a great workout, You don't get as injured because you're lifting lighter and slower. So all these benefits, I started to find that when you apply slow principles to everyday life things, you're going to get benefits, whether it's weightlifting, eating, mindfulness, or even intimacy. So I bring all of that up, like how to really build sexual energy between you and your partner when by doing slow techniques.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's break some of those down. I mean,
Yes.
the in the gym, I could definitely relate to that. I think there's really, I don't know how to say, no real solutions, just trade-offs. So, yeah,
Yep.
there's definitely benefits of going slow and you're getting more time under tension, but it doesn't make you fast. So if you want to get fast, going slow doesn't make you fast.
That's
So
true.
there's a, it's like you want to find the right tool for the quality that you're trying to cultivate.
Big time.
But a
Yeah, and
lot
I
of
think
people in general, I think, could just use more slow in their life because of whether it's cultural, societal pressures that just drive the I don't want to say excessive, but there's a lot of drive to do, and be productive, and get more
big time.
done within fewer minutes, and
Yep.
not a lot of pressure to just be and slow down and
Yep.
enjoy.
Well, and that was the main mission of the book. Just people feel the pressure of life. They're stressed out. I started, whenever I asked somebody, "Hey, how you doing?" Frequently the answer was busy. I was like, "Oh, busy, man. Oh, so busy." And I'm like, "Gosh, the feeling of being busy is stress."
For sure.
So there's a chapter in the book called "Bliss Over Busy." And it's kind of a fun chapter and a lot of little anecdotes and stories just to help put things in perspective. And doing some slowing down doesn't mean being less productive. It actually increases productivity. There's, a big movement in Silicon Valley called slow productivity, a big movement in Europe called the slow food revolution.
Oh,
So
really?
there's things that are coming out about slowing down and how to be more productive, healthier, and happier.
Interesting. Yeah, because when you go through like traditional school or whatever, nobody stops. There's no class on like how to slow down and enjoy your life. It's all
Yeah. That's a
like the
great
value.
idea.
There's no infrastructure that just conveys this message as you're learning how to be a human to of the value of when you go slower. It's very outcome
Yeah,
based, and
absolutely.
how many things can you fit on your to-do list, how and so much of success, or the perception of success, is tied to that. Whereas some people could look at their life being really rich because they have made time in their schedule where they don't have things they have to do.
Right. Yeah, yep, exactly. Exactly. And, like we were talking before the show, I have, 3 teenagers and a toddler. I have a couple businesses that I'm working and running and, and a book that I wrote and, how do you like people are like, "How do you get so much done?" And part of the reason I get a lot done is because of by being efficient. How do you be efficient? By getting into flow state. How do you get into flow state? By slowing down. So it does come back to slowing down to enter into a flow. Then you become very efficient. And it's not that I don't go fast or move quickly or efficiently. It is, but I'm in myself when I'm moving fast and quickly. I'm still slow. I still practice slow inside myself. So I keep my mind slow. I'll even slow down my breathing so I'm not frantic and I don't feel the stress and the pressure, even though, let's say, I'm getting all the kids ready and feeding them and I got a meeting and this, that, and the other thing. I'm still trying to practice some slowness within myself. And this comes back to athletics because I was a collegiate athlete and there was a lot of talk at that time being in the zone. Now it's about being in flow state. What happens when you're in flow state is that time seems to go slower. So surfers on a big wave that are zipping down the face of a wave at 40 miles an hour, they describe it as being in slow motion. Basketball players, when they're in the zone, describe that everything slows down and they know where all the other players are. So there is this interesting concept of the slowing down, almost like in the Matrix when all of a sudden everything goes slow and the bullets are flying by and you
Mhm.
see it when life is really busy. some slow, deep breaths, a slower mental state can be quite magical.
For sure.
But yeah, that's a little bit more of the advanced stuff as you practice
And
it.
there's something to be said about being quick to come back, like even if you are like in athletics. I remember hearing many people over the years in like the fitness world, I guess, convey how when you watch like an elite level fighter,
Mhm.
boxer, or martial artist, no matter how explosive they are at the moment of like striking, the best of the best, there's something about how quick they release all that tension and how quick they get back to like a relaxed baseline where
Right.
they're like calm and clear-headed, and it's exceptional to watch someone at that level where they seem to be relaxed, and then there's just like a flurry of periodic lightning, but every all the moments in between the lightning strikes, they're like so chill and smooth, and there's like a smoothness to being that, that calm, and I'm sure they're in the zone, they're in the flow in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think martial arts and boxing is a really good metaphor because you folks might not be, doing any sparring or boxing, but there's plenty of adversarial energy in our lives, whether it's work or family or just whatever it is that is challenging you. And so when we're sitting in traffic late to work or we're on the phone with our tax guy, how can we drop into a state of relaxation and into a state of flow rather than tightness and tension? And I think, Les, you're exactly right. When we respond to life with relaxation, we're going to come into those circumstances with peak performance rather than limited energy because we're dispersing it through tension and tightness and mental stress. So stress can be really the hijacker of peak performance. And when we're facing those adversarial circumstances in life, our challenges, if we can relax into them, we're going to be more efficient and get into that flow state. So these states of peak performance aren't just for the elite athletes, it's for all of us to get into. And one key component to getting into that is to strategically slow down and relax. And that's what we train all the time in like in Qigong or in Tai Chi.
It's like the everyday life stresses are your that's your boxing fight. Like that, so you have to be good at chilling out. I mean, I know that personally, and I'm sure, and I know everybody has like their own like spots where they wind up well gripping, wherever their body is keeping that score of whatever that stress is. And I mean, I work in a gym environment where I see this where you'll see people, you'll see this no matter what they're doing, like when things get challenging, you'll see tension in that same spot. Like for me, I'll hold it like tension in my gut, like almost like I have knots in my intestines or something. It's
Yeah,
like a gripping. But then as you
absolutely.
practice that awareness and and you've like shined a light on, this is my tendency. This is not a problem. This is some kind of strategy I've developed to help me survive this human experience,
Yep.
and then I could be like quicker and quicker to dissolve it is the moment my attention gets on it. And as you practice, your attention gets on it quicker and smoother, and then over time you become less tense.
Yeah. That is such a good insight. I think you're really in tune with your body because we digest emotional stress in a similar pattern as we digest food. So when we feeling emotional stress, you might feel it in your solar plexus or in your belly. What happens, that tension in the belly affects the diaphragm. The diaphragmatic tension limits the way we breathe. If we're shallow breathing, we're going to end up stacking tension in the neck and shoulders. And so you could just see this pattern stemming from our center, our belly, lessening of the diaphragmatic movement because stress makes us breathe shallow and quick. So then all of a sudden, neck, shoulders, upper back become tight and tense,
Which you see everywhere with people. Like you
which you see
see
everywhere.
everywhere.
I travel and speak, all over the world, and it doesn't matter what culture you're in. people, when I ask, where do you hold your stress? Predominantly, it is upper back, neck, and shoulders.
You mentioned a couple categories of like applying the slow. You mentioned there's a slow food revolution. Is that how you reference it?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Just eating slower?
Like in Europe, they just eat a lot slower. They take a lot more time during their meals. It also has to do with, farm to table, that they're not rushing the whole process, and they're really developing healthy ways of consuming food, from the gardening to the growing of the food to the eating experience at a restaurant. So this movement came out of Italy. It's called the slow food revolution. And quite practically, we don't have to do all of that. But if you, for example, in the book, I talk about how to eat, not what to eat. And the how to eat is very important to health, because even when we're eating really healthy food, if we're eating too fast, you're not going to be able to assimilate the food. It'll still create indigestion or bloating or lack of processing through the digestive system. So digestion starts in the mouth. So one thing you can do is, whatever it is you're eating, just chew more and eat a little slower. So the ideal amount of chewing is about 32 times, which seems like a lot. So what I suggest in the book is just do 32 chews on your very first bite and then forget about it. But because you've set up a pattern in the beginning of the meal, you're going to chew your food longer. And there is lots of enzymes in saliva that helps to break down the food, so that by the time it gets to your stomach, you are going to turn that food into energy. So that's why a lot of people feel tired after eating, is because their food, it's taking your body a lot more energy to transform the food into energy. So chew your food a little longer, eat a little slower. You won't overeat that way, because the signals from your stomach to get to your brain take about 20 minutes, and you just feel a lot better. Plus, especially if you're eating something you like eating, it tastes good, you chew a little longer, you get more enjoyment from the food. You're more mindful as you eat. So we eat, 3 times a day. You have an opportunity to practice a little mindfulness and slowness at each of those moments.
Yeah, I would agree. The nervous system like runs the show, and you have to convince the nervous system that it's a good time to be eating. And if you're trying to squeeze it in your to-do list, your meals, it could be easy to lose sight of that. I definitely have a history eating too fast. One thing that I think I struggle with, because I cook a lot. I like to
Yeah,
cook. I like to feed the people. That's my family
me
always makes
too. Me too.
my
Isn't that
family always makes fun of me, like
it's an act
feed
of love, huh?
feed the people. And
Yeah.
like I find myself like worrying, like, did my people get enough food?
Yes, me too. We're on the same page.
And but one thing I wouldn't say a downfall of that, but something I have to be careful of is the energy. Like cooking is an art of timing in a lot of ways. Like you want
Yeah.
everything to be done at the same time. So if you have multiple ingredients, things like you're working backwards of when you're starting, and then there's this moment where it's all like boom, it's all done and ice cream dinner and everybody shows up, and but it's a high energy activity, like finishing that meal. And I find myself
Right.
focusing so much on the cooking and the presentation and the providing and the putting it there. And then I sit down and I'm like ramped up from the act
Oh,
of cooking, from
right.
like the physical, mental, like the cognitive demands of cooking for 5 people is like, it's a lot. It's
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, I
and
know.
I'm like racy, and then it's easy for me, and then I wanna eat it while it's warm,
Yeah.
so it's like, I'll be too quick to just start scarfing, and I already have a history of, like, eating fast,
Right.
so, it's very easy for me to lose sight, and then when I remember, I'll, I'll take a few breaths. I wonder too, like, my family's never been one to, like, take part in, like, before meal prayer, but I
Mhm.
wonder.
Right.
I know that there's a large population around the world that does that, and
Yeah.
I wonder if some of that stems from that, of, like, setting the tone and really the overall health benefits of, like, chilling out, not just, like,
Mhm.
showing gratitude for the food you got, but
Mhm.
It's really like an act of mindfulness of
Yeah.
paying attention to what you're doing and slowing down and enjoying it and getting most of out of it. And really, the biggest thing is not, I don't want to say the biggest, but up there with, the nutrition you're getting, it's like the connection that you're generally eating with others.
Yeah.
And, what ultimately is more important than our connections with others? Nothing. So
Right.
it's like
Right.
that's where life unfolds, like at the mealtime with your loved ones.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's such a good point. It's such a high skill to be able to cook for everybody, have it all ready. And we're invested emotionally. We want everybody to enjoy it. We want everybody to come together. That's at least for me, and sometimes, my 3 teenagers will be here and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, all of a sudden there's 3 extra friends over." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, now I gotta feed 3 more people. I hope," and then you're like, "Okay, how do I expand the meal and, work some magic and, get everybody at the table at the same time?" And I think you're exactly right. To have a little moment at the beginning of the meal to set an intention of gratitude, of connection, of nourishment, of blessings is a great thing. It doesn't have to be a prayer. It could just be a moment. And sometimes I just have a question to to the kids, like, "Hey, what are we grateful for today?" Let's take a deep breath, and we just kind of set the tone at that beginning of the meal, and that's a good time. Little gratitude, eat slowly on that first bite, and then just sort of dive into the energy of whatever comes up, because definitely with teenagers, a lot of things come up at mealtime that are unexpected. Goofy stuff, silly stuff. Sometimes it's really fun. Sometimes it's a little more heavy. Sometimes, the unexpected comes up. But setting that tone early in the meal can really allow for whatever needs to arise to come out naturally.
Right. So the other categories that you're trying to apply slowness to, obviously you have a big history of applying it through like movement modalities, the
Yes.
eating. You also mentioned like sexual activity.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah. All of a sudden, people's ears perked up.
We don't talk a lot about sex on this podcast. I don't think we
Okay,
have.
well, let's talk about it. So, sex is energy, and most of the time that we're engaging in intimacy, it's not to procreate, it's not to have a baby. Most of the time, it's for energetic connection. We want to feel connected, and the energy of sexuality is a blissful energy. It is creative energy. Um, Sexual energy can be applied to many different aspects of life because it has a lot to do with our health and our vitality and our creativity and our inspiration, our excitement for life. So when we're, let's say, have an idea, we want to bring it into the world. Like, I want to write a book. I want to open up a healing arts center. I want to paint a picture. I want to do something that's not yet in manifestation. Part of that bringing it into fruition is that creative expression. So sexual energy moves through our system and it can ignite our imagination, or it's going to connect us. Sexual energy is a unifying energy that takes two polarities, we might call it yin and yang, and creates a third energy. That's why it can give birth to new life. So when we're being intimate with a partner, we want to share energy, we want to connect. Now, for the masculine and the feminine to connect, often it takes a little time. So think about cooking. We were just cooking. We want to cook up some energy with our partner. If we rush through it, maybe we don't cook it long enough, it doesn't come out right. We don't season it well enough, it's not going to be as blissful as it could be. Sexual energy, orgasmic energy, is one of the most powerful energies we feel as human beings. It's very influential. And unfortunately, in the West, it's a fascination and it's also a suppression. So we suppress it, but we're also very fascinated with this energy. We have mixed emotions around it, and it's a very natural phenomena. For example, in Qigong, they call it clouds and rain. It's as natural as the rain falling from the sky and the earth absorbing it and giving birth to new plants and flowers. It's just the way in which the nature is in movement and being creative. So, how do we optimize this energy to make it enhance our lives in many, many ways. In fact, in Qigong, they say that sexual energy, as it circulates, if it's circulating in your body, it leads to vitality and a lot more internal energy. So that being said, they slow down the whole process so that energy can be exchanged and energy can heighten. If we go too quickly, the energy doesn't heighten enough. We're looking at the finish line as opposed to the whole ecstatic experience. So pressure points come in, using the erogenous zones of other areas of the body to amplify, heighten, and increase pleasure as well as connection.
Okay, so foreplay's good.
So
Some
foreplay is good. Yes. Foreplay, 5 play, 6 play,
it's
slow it all
funny
down.
because
Yeah.
I'm sure there's exceptions to this. Even with like
Yes.
the same amount of the same people, you could have exceptions of like how you're vibing sexually in a given moment. But on
Absolutely.
average, it seems like guys will, I guess, will vibrate at a higher rate, I guess, at a faster pace. And there's something to be said for trying to harmonize, I guess, the
Exactly.
different vibrations so that two people can have that connection.
That's it.
And I think a lot of couples don't pay attention to that over the course of a relationship, and it does a real disservice to the relationship as a whole.
Yeah.
Like
Well
it
said.
becomes like a sour spot of the relationship,
Definitely can be for
as
sure.
opposed to like they might start out hot and heavy as a young couple, but instead of it getting better and better as they get older, as they learn about each other and care more
Yeah.
about each other, it goes the other way because of the lack of intention or paying attention to
Right.
its own entity, like that third energy force that is being created, whether there's a new life form being created or not, there is
Right.
that additional energy that is there that as the sum of the two at play.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And I think these techniques can be very helpful to reignite some of that passion. And I think, understanding the masculine sexual energy, the feminine sexual energy, in Qigong terms, we're going to say men are more like fire, women are more like water. Fire is quick to get hot, quick to burn out. Water is slow to get hot and slower to burn out. So the slowness really helps that yin energy. Now, there's many exceptions to it. Some women are very fiery sexually and some men are very watery sexually. So it's not necessarily about men and women, but we can maybe call masculine feminine. So understanding your partner's energy, and in general, if men slow down and don't have that finish line, goal-oriented type of mindset, it's more of a journey destination, a circulation of energy, then their partners will be more interested in sexual energy. Maybe sexual expression is slowly cultivated throughout the day with like a nice text while you're at work, something, hey, I'm thinking about you, maybe a little gesture that your partner appreciates. The energy starts to percolate. Hey, I'm looking forward to connecting with you. A little bit of massage, pressure points, romance, and all of a sudden the energy now is warmer as opposed to this like stressful day, jump into bed, turn the lights off, I'm feeling a little frisky. How about you, honey? And then, like quickly get it over with. There's nothing wrong with that, but just at times bring in that variety, bring in that slowness. Even,
You got to read the room. Got to read
yeah,
the room. I
you
have
got to read the
definitely
room. Exactly.
I've definitely had my share of failures of my ability to read the room. I mean, but
Yeah.
now that
That's how we learn and grow.
I'm coming up on 48 and
There
definitely
we go.
more in tune with that now than I used to be.
Yeah,
It's interesting, and
exactly.
I could think, from a male perspective and having, I don't want to say excess, but a good amount of, I guess, masculine energy in that department. I understand, I can conceptualize and take part in very simply like the act of slowing down. Really, and part of that is for selfish reasons, so that I have an increased chance of being able to, I guess, ultimately get what I physically, emotionally want or whatever. And also I get a lot of joy in seeing the joy in my partner. That definitely, that in itself is very arousing to me.
Yeah, for
From a
sure.
feminine perspective, though, like, or a watery male, as you assumed, but from
Yeah,
someone that naturally is less fiery, that wants to have a deeper connection sexually with their partner, let's say, how do you propose? Like, I can't see it from their perspective. Like, I could see it
right,
very easily. Like, okay, I want to go at 95 level and I understand how to bring it down to 75 or 65. But if
right,
somebody lives at, let's say, a 25,
right.
35, and it's like a lot more water than fire,
Mhm.
how does someone, like, how do you, I guess, pull yourself up from your bootstraps? Like, how do
Right.
you pull yourself up if you are watery?
Right, and that's a good question, and I think part of it is just, like, the lack of pressure to get to that destination, to, like, that building just takes a little bit more time, and so for the fiery person, if we think about water and fire, if we want the water to warm up, we put the fire underneath the water. We warm the water up and get it to the fire and water exchange in the right way to create, in Qigong perspective, it's called Kan and Lee. Fire and water creates steam. And we want that transformation to create the steam is the transformation where both partners feel really good. So there's a thing, where the fiery person is going to be more initiating because it's right there on the surface. For the watery person, to really explain what helps them to get warmer. Like, hey, if we sit down and have a nice meal together, a glass of wine, we watch a romantic movie, just like being able to communicate to your partner what helps you get into the mood can be very helpful because the fiery person is ready to go. And what can happen is because the watery person knows it's going to take a long time, sometimes they'll shut it down frequently, like, no. And then the fiery person feels rejected and then they pull away. And it's not that the watery person doesn't want to, it's just that they're just like, oh, I'm either too tired because they don't have enough fire. I'm not in the mood because the mood hasn't been set. If it's going to be quick, they're not going to feel the pleasure. So to understand, like you were saying, Les, like understand your partner and communicate about that can be really helpful. So I think communication, just understanding that there's going to be a few things to do for the fiery person and the couple to do. Maybe it's like for me, it's like giving a little massage before, like something that's relaxing and stimulating, but not too much too fast.
Gotcha.
Hand massage, foot massage, little neck massage, and then all of a sudden now getting into some intimacy that's not, directly focused right on, the sexual organs right away. And then all of a sudden the energy shifts and you could feel it shift. And now it's like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, I wonder, I bet there's just a ton of couples out there that have never stopped to ask and have that communication of like, what what does warm your water up, or what does, like,
It's so true.
what
And it might
do
be doing
you
a little
want from
yoga
me?
together, little qigong together, little energy work. It doesn't, slow doesn't mean take a long time. It could just mean how do we connect first in a, let's say, intimate way, but a non-sexual way? How do we connect first to get that energy going in that direction? And I think that makes a big difference.
That's great. So that's interesting that you wrote about that in your book. I've always been very interested in like the sexual side of life, and I think I would find it really hard to write about that and put it and put it out
It
there in the
is.
world.
It very much
But
is.
you're
It's like I said,
It's noble
everybody's.
work, Lee, to
Thank
help
you.
people have more intimacy in the bedroom.
More joy. I mean, gosh, we're here for, these bodies are built for, pleasure. They have a lot of, gosh, receptor sites for pleasurable experience. And for example, in Chinese medicine, this is very interesting. When I was a young man, I was a ghostwriter for a Qigong and Chinese medicine doctor, a master. And I wrote, one of the first books I wrote for him was a book called Sexual Reflexology. He gave me this tattered old manual and he was like, I want you to turn this into a book. In Asia, throughout history, there was a lot of arranged marriages. And so the masters of the time that were arranging the marriages would look at energetic compatibility.
Hmm.
What made a couple compatible? So there was, in part of the book was like looking at things that show compatibility, where you might be off with your partner, where you might really connect with your partner, how to, bring forth energy and whatnot. So and then sexual energy as a source of vitality. Interestingly enough, when let's say somebody has a physical ailment, back in the day, they called it healing through pleasure. So the doctor might say, if somebody had asthma, let's say the husband had asthma, he would say, okay, well, I want you to go home and I want you to make love in this position this many times per week. And that's going to send energy to your lungs and create a healing effect. So it's healing through pleasure as opposed to healing through pain.
Interesting.
Because,
Honey, doctor's orders. We gotta,
maybe the doctor said, so everybody wanted to go to the doctor back then.
Right. It's funny you mentioned like the vitality and the energy of vitality. I've definitely heard people reference, especially from like a Chinese medicine context, of how you could kind of like, I don't know, like give away too much chi. Like it has to be managed. Like it's important to keep that flowing, if you will. So,
Right.
especially in the context of guys. I don't know if I've really heard it discussed in the context of women, but as you get older, you decrease the frequency of your finishes, I guess, and if you overdo it, it's like really depleting to your life force.
It can be. Yeah, exactly. Well, sexual fluids are a source of energy called Jing Qi. So women tend to lose, quote unquote, lose energy during menstrual cycle. It's a cleansing and a clearing, yes, but they'll feel that depletion. So, and men lose energy with ejaculation. So, in the male sexual energy practices, as we get more advanced, you separate ejaculation and orgasm. So, you still can have this orgasmic, blissful energy circulating through you without ejaculating every time you have sex. You can still have sex, but you bring it inward and upward. So these are more advanced techniques in the Qigong sexual energy practices.
Interesting.
Uh,
I'll take your
I
word
did a
for that.
workshop on it.
I don't know if I'm ready or interested in separating those
Hey,
just
you know
yet.
what? You,
Maybe one day.
maybe one day, yeah. It's a really interesting concept. It's good to just know, because then you can temper. And also, when you slow down as a man, you will automatically absorb more energy and circulate it through you. So then you, quote unquote, lose less energy. So you don't even really have to do the full advanced technique. You could just slow down. When you're feeling close to that finish,
Right.
slow down, breathe, absorb that energy, because it's very blissful energy and we want it to move in the body. So
It's interesting
yeah,
in the Western like medicine model, there's plenty of studies on the hormonal changes that take place
yeah, big
from
time.
whether it's like semen retention or after you ejaculated for that period after, and you definitely just from like a blood level analysis, you lose like masculine hormones levels
Ah,
essentially from
yep.
ejaculation for some period of time, and it depletes nutrients. Like I don't think people realize like it requires a good amount of nutrients, some in particular, to make that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So like you have to be repleted.
It's the best energy of the body, because your system, your physiological system, is going to put the best energy it can into that area of the body. So when you bring that energy back in, it's very nourishing. That's why in Chinese medicine, it was considered an anti-aging elixir and a practice to circulate that energy. So, stage one, slow down, just let it build and circulate and let it nourish your body. And then there's all these advanced practices that allow you to transform it and like we were saying, bring that orgasmic energy in and through. And practices are similar for men and women. And basically it's just, how do we enjoy the practice? How do we exchange loving energy of the hearts with each other, as well as blissful sexual energy, and then create this almost spiritual experience, this altered state of consciousness that is very natural to happen in times of deep pleasure and deep connection.
Yeah. Another thing that I think our cultural infrastructures like really fail us.
They
I mean,
do.
I think women especially are raised to you mentioned the word like suppression earlier.
Yeah.
It's like nobody, especially in like the schooling structures, the education, it's like nobody's there to tell you about all the joy and how awesome it is.
Mm-mm.
It's all like the problems associated with it. It's like they want to scare
Right.
you out of it, and like that has an impact
Big
on
time.
people,
Yeah.
and a lasting impact if it's not, if that program's not rewired
Big time. I
intentionally.
know it's unfortunate that we like there's just so many ways in which we suppress this energy. And unfortunately, whether it's society, religion, if you suppress it, what we call in Chinese medicine is going to create a deviation of the energy. So you hold it down and then it comes out in unnatural ways. So suppressing that energy, in let's say we've seen a lot of religious contexts where this energy has been suppressed coming out in deviant ways.
Right.
It's powerful. So move it in its natural ways, and it becomes a source of great joy and a great connection.
It needs balance.
And
It's like
it needs
anything.
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yin yang. Daily slow routine. I think you mentioned that. I don't know if it's one of the chapters in your book or
Yeah, it's really the last thing we talk about how to apply it daily. So, sometimes we slow over a cup of tea or coffee. Have your morning cup and just take a moment, take a deep breath. There's a little practice of holding the cup right by your heart. Just think about few things you're grateful for. Nice deep breath. Go about your day, sip on your tea, and that you have a moment of mindfulness. And strategically putting a few of these mindful techniques really helps to elevate the day, to create more moments throughout the day where you're like, today was a good day. Even though there was adversity or challenges or stress, I periodically stopped, I slowed down, I elevated my energy, I released stress, I reset, and then I went after it again. So, cup of tea, coffee in the morning is a good time, beginning of a meal, a formalized movement practice where we're going to just do something to disperse stress and nourish peaceful energy. It's lots of ways to do that throughout the day.
I remember hearing I think this is a real study where they did some kind of analysis and they could predict the population size or the population like density of a town or city that someone came from or lived in based on the speed in which they walk and talk.
Oh, that's so interesting.
As you have more density of people, it's like it's everything speeds up and they're rattling off each other and
Right. And there's less nature.
yeah,
In the book, I talk about the five ways to connect to nature, which will automatically create a slowness. Like, for example, all these ancient practices are having lots of new studies around it and showing the benefit, like grounding. You take your shoes off, you put bare feet on the earth, in about 1 minute, your oxidation levels drop, negative ions move through the body, which is very positive, and you become more grounded and present. So, ways in which we could just kick our shoes off, stand on some grass, some sand, some dirt for a minute, and get this powerful rejuvenating effect
yeah,
in the
grounding is
body.
for real. That's a regular practice of mine. It's
Yep.
funny because you've heard people say like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with or whatever,
Uh-huh.
which basically means we are always adapting, very malleable, and we're always influenced by our environment. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, going outside, like to think that that's not going to influence you, like having the
Big
difference of
time.
being in a house where your eyes are never gazing past 20 feet and there's artificial light and you're not connecting to like a source of ions or whatever. Like, of
Yeah.
course you're going to have benefits from being outside.
And I think that study you was mentioning is interesting because when you're packed in a city, there's less nature, so you're all of a sudden you speed up more.
Right.
And when you're more connected to nature, all of a sudden you can slow down. And I think what people really want, nobody wants to hurry and rush through life. They want to create actually more moments. That's why we love vacations. That's why we have this retirement on the horizon where I'm going to finally be able to slow down and relax. Well, put in moments of mini vacations throughout your day. Put in those moments of, let's say, retirement through the day so that you can like have a little mini break, mini vacation, so that that goal of someday I'll have enough money, I'll have enough time so that I could slow down. That really becomes, because of your patterning, never really happens, because all of a sudden we've been habituated and conditioned that by the time retirement comes, we're so internally habituated to stress and quickness that we don't even know how to slow down. So instill it in these moments, instill it in the day. There's plenty of time throughout the day to bring in slow, not only to bring it in to elevate and relax, but it'll make you more productive and efficient.
What are the other ways that you said there were like 5 ways that you mentioned to connect to nature? What are some of the other ones?
I mean, another great one is watch a sunset, sunrise or sunset. All of a sudden, when anybody watches a sunset, you feel connected to nature. People, they just take a deep breath. Automatically, it's a reset. So if you can watch sunrise, sunset, beautiful, beautiful practice. The other thing, breathe in the breath of trees. So the studies out of Japan on forest bathing, tremendously powerful healing practices. People they take sick people, terminal illness, and they just send them out into the forest for a few hours a day, and you get miraculous results.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of my regular medicines. I'm
yep,
fortunate enough to have some woods right out my backyard, and
yep,
I put a little built a little trail in there, and
good.
I mean, it's a short loop, but it's like the difference of just spending 10, 20 minutes doing that on a day as opposed to a day where you don't do that.
Yeah,
Very
tremendous.
far-reaching benefits, yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
about the breathing. I wonder if it is like how much of that is the actual breathing in something a tree breathes
Hmm.
out. Like I wonder if
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
something actually there where there's molecules they're giving off that we're taking
right.
in and some kind of nonverbal communication going on
Big
that we're
time.
not
And
even
when you look
aware of.
at trees, are very wise and they communicate, and they're the lungs of the earth. And we exhale carbon dioxide. They inhale
Right.
carbon dioxide. They exhale oxygen. We inhale oxygen. I mean, there's this the symbiotic, synergistic relationship of trees and human beings
Have you
is
read the
is
book,
deep.
Lee? The Secret, I think it's called The Secret Life of Trees or something.
No, I need to though. That sounds amazing.
You might like that one.
I think I will.
It's kind of crazy. They do crazy
Yeah,
stuff.
this crazy stuff,
There's
right?
more to them than what appears,
Yes,
for
and
sure.
it is good for us to be around them. And if you do some mindfulness practice and even just some deep breathing while you're walking in the forest, or put your hands on a tree and take a few deep breaths, the more intentional you are, the more powerful the experience.
Yeah, there's a tree. So when I got into Qigong, I went out to a particular tree in the backyard that it's a pretty beefy oak, but it's like really bent. It's this red oak
Uh-huh.
that's bent and I went out there, I started going out there at like tough times in my life,
Yeah.
like some really tough emotional, mental stuff I was working through. And Qigong was like a practice that I relied on. It was like an anchor for me at that time to kind of work through some of um, that pain and suffering. And that tree meant so much to me. Like the fact that it wasn't like straight and
Uh,
perfect,
yeah.
it was like strong, but it was like, okay, it's clearly visually like flawed, you know,
Right.
but it's
Oh,
like,
cool.
but it's there and it's growing and it keeps going. And it was like a metaphor for me going through like my flaws, if you will, that or at least, I had insecurities that now I don't look at them as flaws, but
Yeah.
that's a long journey to get to that point. But there was a time where, a lot of like shame and guilt around some of aspects about myself. And that tree was like my friend. And I've even told my family knows, like when I die, they know, put my ashes by that tree.
Oh, that's so
Like
beautiful.
that's like that's like the anchor point of my trail. And sometimes, yeah, I'll walk up and just put my hands on it. Or if I'm going to start
Beautiful.
I'll usually when I practice qigong, I haven't been doing it lately, but I would practice with my back to a tree and like kind of
Beautiful.
tap into the strength
Yeah.
behind me. And but I
We
would
all need a friend.
but I would start and finish the practice by just like putting my hands on it and like acknowledging its existence and thanks for being there for me and let's do this practice now. And it's just, 5-10 minute thing and then move on. But it
Gord
created like real meaning. Like
Yeah.
it was whatever that connection is, even though it can't be like seen or probably measured by a scientist or whatever, man, it is freaking real for sure. At least
Yeah.
real to me.
Th and that's what counts. I mean, to have a friend that's a tree is a good
It's
friend.
a good friend. Yeah.
Always there for you.
All right,
And,
everybody, go find a tree and make friends.
big time. And I think, Les, you're gonna love this story. It's by a Qigong Taoist master called Chuang, very famous storyteller. He's the storyteller who said, "I had a dream that I was a butterfly, and when I woke up, I didn't know if I was a man dreaming I was a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming that I was a man." But he tells a story about a twisted tree. So I like it. And I think you should read Chuang Tzu's story of the twisted tree. And it basically is about that this carpenter and a friend were walking, and he saw this big tree on the horizon. And the carpenter said, "Wow, look at that tree. I'm going to cut it down. I'm going to use it to build a house." And as they got closer, they saw that the branches and the trunk was twisted and spiraling. And he said, "Oh man, that tree is useless to me. I can't cut it down to make a house. Maybe I'll use the branches to make some furniture." And they got a little closer, and the branches were too twisted and gnarled to make any furniture. And he said, "That tree is useless. And maybe we'll make some tea out of the leaves." And they picked the leaf and tasted it, and it was bitter. They said, the leaves are bitter. This tree is useless to me. But in being useless to the man, the tree was useful to itself and became the most of itself it could be. And it's just a beautiful story about this twisted tree that was not useful to somebody else because it was authentically itself.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, there's some twisted trees here in Santa Cruz, twisted redwood trees. And it always reminds me of that story, and also reminds me that nothing in life is just a straight line. It's always a spiral. It's always a wiggle.
Right, for sure. Yeah, that's a good reminder for folks, especially when things might feel like you're experiencing some turbulence of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely. The unexpected.
Yeah, Lee, it's great to connect with you again.
You as well.
How do people get your book?
Ready, Set, Slow, folks. You can get it wherever you like to get books. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's published by Sounds True. So you can get it at Sounds True. And then come find me on my website, holdenqigong.com. Qigong is Qigong. holdenqigong.com. And I did, in the book, there's lots of exercises. So I did a little video. So in the end of each exercise, there's a little link to a video of the practice. So instead of just reading it, you can follow along with me.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea. Well, for the listeners out there, always grateful for your listening. I encourage you to check out Lee's work, and I'm sure you find some value. And if you've never dove into Qigong or Dao, excellent teacher, and there's just so much to get out of that. So I encourage you, if you've never practiced that kind of stuff, dip your toe in it and see what will unfold for you. My guess is you'll be happy it did. Lee, thanks again. Always grateful that you're putting out and did all the work you've done and juggle so much and provide so much for people to get value out of it. I appreciate it. And of course, for the listeners, always grateful for your listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Have a great day, everyone.